Howdy, Vine Trippers. I wanted to take just a moment to talk to you about the Texas Wine Lover website and their phone app for both iPhones as well as Google devices. You can actually download this app, put it on your phone, or just go to the website if you're not an app person. And if you ever want to go visit some of these great locations that we've been talking about in the podcast, this will give you a great information about the place before you go. And you'll be able to find other wineries in the area. So if you want to make a day of it, go see several other places as well. You can search by region. You can sort the listings, find ones that are kid-friendly, family-friendly, even ones that host RVs. All kinds of different sortable listings you can find there in that app and on the website. You can find other things as well in the area like restaurants, accommodations, maybe events that are going on at the different wineries. So it's your one-stop resource that goes hand in hand with this podcast to be able to find those great places to go visit. So check out the Texas Wine Lover website. It's txwinelover.com. Or go to their app. You can find it on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store as well. Enjoy your trips among the vines and use that app. Welcome to Texas Under Vine, an exploratory podcast to scout out the best Texas wine country has to offer. I'm your wine guide, Scott, and I'm here to lead you on an auditory expedition to the vineyards and wineries across the great Lone Star State. Each episode will cover a different vineyard, winery, or wine-related business operating in Texas. You'll hear interviews, descriptions, and details about each location that will excite you to visit and experience them for yourself. Ready to plan a wine tour? Use these episodes to choose the most interesting spots for you and your friends to check out. Most of all, enjoy hearing about the rapidly growing wine industry in the state and what makes our wines and wineries the best. Howdy, fellow Vine Tripper. Welcome to episode 52 of the Texas Under Vine podcast. This is the anticipated season finale of the successful season 2 of the podcast. I will be taking a short break during the month of December to spend time with family and friends during the holidays, but I'll be back in January with some great new episodes for season 3. But right now we have the culmination of season 2 here with episode 52, and I'm excited to bring this big one to you today. So during my time, I was able to travel down to Kerrville, Texas, and interview John Rivenburgh of Rivenburgh Wine. So John has had his hand in a lot of different things, as you will find out, but he has his own label of wines that he makes personally called Rivenburgh Wine, and he has a tasting room for that. So I wanted to take you there and to hear from him and to learn a little bit about his tasting room and his wines. Now, John has been making wine for almost 2 decades now. He is a true Texan, spent most of his time in the Hill Country, was born in San Antonio, and has lived in this area as a true passion and heart for Texas, and especially the Central Texas area and the Hill Country. And he was actually part of the founding of Bending Branch Winery in Comfort, Texas, along with Dr. Bob Young. They actually started that winery there and partnered together. John was the winemaker, and they were on the cutting edge of technology as they researched things like cryomaceration and flash détente and things like that in the winemaking process. You can hear more about that in my episode 23, where I interviewed Dr. Young about Bending Branch. But John was there and a part of all of that right there on the bleeding edge of advanced winemaking techniques and making incredible wines. And while he was there at Bending Branch, he was also part of helping to plant a varietal or a few varietals that were the first plantings in Texas, like, for instance, Picpoul Blanc. He was a part of that. He also was a part of championing some more lesser-known varietals that are now becoming even more popular, like Tannat and Chuzat. So John left Bending Branch in 2015, and he was kind of dabbling, making some wines on his own, what would become Rivenburgh Wines. but he was asked to do some consulting. So he began starting consulting using his experience with many other wineries and began to build what is now an incubator program where John helps brand new people who are getting into the wine industry here in Texas to get up and running and started. It has launched many wineries in the Central Texas and Hill Country area, many that you've actually heard on this podcast. Uh, John has had a hand in helping to create and get those wineries up and going from the start. And for several years, John made his own wines, his Rivenburgh wines. It's more of a cult style wine, wherever he could get some tank space from friends and things like that, as he kind of made these different varietals and different wines for that brand. But in 2019, they took over Kerrville Hills Winery, and that gave him a more permanent location to not just make his own wines for Rivenburgh Wines and for Kerrville Hills Winery. And it also provided a great launching point for many of these other wineries that are in the incubator program that John has developed here. So that kind of became their base of operations there in Kerrville and became the home of Rivenburgh Wine as well. So it no longer roamed around to multiple wineries. It was based there out of that Kerrville Hills Winery there in Kerrville. Now, forwarding the story a little bit further, he was actually approached by Schreiner University there in Kerrville. They wanted to start a viticulture type program, and they made an arrangement to plant a small trial vineyard there on the site of Schreiner University and start teaching some classes on viticulture and enology and things like that there. And so they decided to, as part of this process, move the Kerrville Hills Winery through this program with Schreiner into a old mansion that was on the campus, not far from that vineyard that they have planted there, where now Kerrville Hills makes its home, and they do all of their work and things out of that particular location for Kerrville Hills. But that left the old location kind of abandoned, not sure what to do there. So John decided through some friends to turn that into his home for Rivenburgh Wine. So it now has its own permanent tasting room, an own permanent place there in the old Kerrville Hills Winery building, which is actually just a little bit north of Kerrville, a few miles north. And that's now Rivenburgh Wines. Now, in addition to the Rivenburgh wines that you'll get in that tasting room, they also host Hill Country Spirits, which is a distiller. And they have all kinds of spirits that you can taste there. Some really cool things. John will talk a little bit about it in the interview, so you can hear more about that. So if spirits are more your thing than, say, wine, you'll be able to taste that when you go, as well as one of his incubator projects, Nobleman Wines, actually has a small tasting room there on site as well. So when you go to this location, you get to taste Rivenburgh wine, you get to taste those Hill Country spirits, and you can go right over there and taste Nobleman Wines there if you'd like to as well. So when I went to visit, after walking around the tasting room and checking things out a little bit, John showed up. He came straight from a vineyard that he was doing some consulting at and led me back through the production facilities to an office where we were able to sit down, and I was able to pick his brain just a little bit to hear him talk all things Texas wine, to hear about some of the wines he's making, these projects that he's had a hand in. And it was such a delightful and fun conversation to hear from him. So why don't we just hear from him? Let's go to that interview. All right, fine trippers, welcome to this episode now that we're going to hear at Rivenburgh Wine. And we're going to be talking to John Rivenburgh, the owner, proprietor, and namesake of this winery. And we're going to hear about some amazing things that he's doing for Texas wine, for many wineries throughout the state, and kind of tap into his knowledge and tell you about this great location to come visit here soon. So let's see. John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm entering into the tail end of my second decade of winemaking in Texas. It's been a heck of a ride. It's had its challenges, it's had its wins, it's had its losses. You were just telling me that you coached for a lot of years football, so I played football as a lot of kids do. So my analogies usually center around football and cooking, and then a little bit of wine.
Okay.
And so, like, those around me are like, really, another sports analogy? Like, really, another one? I'm like, that's what
More sports ball.
it's what I know, man. Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, it's the only thing I know how to relate things. But I've been very lucky to be in this industry and survive it for all these years. I love it more than just about anything in this world, except for maybe my kiddos. It's amazing, man. It's great to be on the front lines of what's happening. It's a little hard for me to figure out how I became the old sage winemaker when I still feel like I'm very much on the progressive cutting edge of what's happening. But I am that guy, right? So I'm a multi-generation San Antonian. I
Okay.
grew up in San Antonio. I was born there, raised in and around the hill country. Got a lot of family history and background in this area. Um, man, I love what I do. But probably the biggest thing people don't. I'm a process nerd. I love wine, but I love the process. It's the process of and the mastery that comes behind growing something, tending it, producing it, taking it and altering it into something else that then you get to share with people, and then that family enjoyment around it. I love that process. The process from planting to growing to producing to sharing, and then what that family communal part of it means is super important to me. That's my
Sitting around the table with friends with wine.
yeah, that is
Knowing the birth of that wine from the ground to the glass.
yeah, or enjoying one that you are learning about at the same time, right? All of it. Like that's I love I love the story that every wine bottle tells. Because every wine bottle is completely different. Completely different. They're never the same bottle of wine opened at the same time.
Well, what led you into the wine industry? How'd you get your start there?
Oh man, I wish I had some really cool story around like I interned in France and I fell in love with, Syrah and Cab. Um, it quite honestly was um an adventure into all the things that I was already kind of good at, right? Like to be a good wine producer, a winemaker, you kind of got to be good at a lot of different things. It truly is the jack of all trades job, right? Especially in a region like Texas. When I got started, we didn't have anybody that would sell us equipment, so we were building and designing our own equipment. Like there wasn't like
Yeah.
there wasn't a vendor's vault or a P&L specialties or now we have all of these, all these different equipment suppliers like setting up shop in Texas and wanting to be part of what we're doing. Well, back then we couldn't get them to return a call.
You were bootstrapping
You
it.
were bootstrapping it. You had to, so I'm kind of partly an engineer, partly a builder, partly a plumber, partly and so I kind of had a background of those abilities. I have a pretty decent palate. I grew up around some wine on my dad's side of the family. My grandmother drank wine at home, and she's a Spaniard, and so we enjoyed wine in that regard, right? So I kind of had this like underlying background of enjoying it, but it was never something I ever imagined I would go into as a career. Right? Truly, I never thought in my wildest dreams I would be a winemaker. Um, and so, yeah, I had the opportunity to get into wine. That was when I helped found Bending Branch Winery with Bob Young. That was many, many years ago. And so
They're in Comfort.
they're in Comfort. Yeah, yeah. So, it's no secret. Allison is my ex-wife, and Bob's my former business partner and former father-in-law. Great people. We have Bob's grandkids are my kids. Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting history and development there. And so having the ability to go in there and just kind of go wild with all the things that we wanted to do and develop. Bob and I had some pretty crazy ideas about how wine should be handled in Texas and how it should be developed. And, all the way from Bob bringing me an article about cryomaceration and us getting it translated into English from French, and then me figuring out how to actually make it work, right? And to, helping build the flash détente and all the things and just theoretical ideals around wine and wanting to do it better. It was great. So that was, I cut my teeth for, I don't know, 9, 10 years developing that place. And
that really speaks to your process-driven side of understanding that process and making it happen.
yeah, or their process-driven side because I built a lot of those processes. Yeah. So, but that, I'm also, as much as I am the guy that is was a pretty successful high school athlete, and at very much the same time, the guy that's like, well, hit it with a hammer to make it work. I'm also kind of a huge nerd, right? So a lot of people don't pick that up when they're around me, but then when you get around me a while, they're like, oh man, John really is a big nerd, you know. We're not in my we're not in my primary office, but at home there's probably 500 books on
Yeah.
wine and chemistry and mechanics and everything else around my desk. And so, yeah, I just, we got to do some really cool stuff. We got to bring varietals to the state that are now, well, it blows my mind that they're kind of commonplace, you know? We planted the first People Blanc in the state of Texas.
Yum.
Many years ago, we were not the first to plant Tannat, but we were certainly the first to make Tannat what it is.
Yeah.
There was a couple other people doing Tannat, but Bob and I really championed pushing that varietal out into the world. And I'm a firm believer that is a varietal that we should be growing all over Central Texas. Verdict's out on my end on whether or not we should be growing it in the high plains because it's cold hardiness, but Central Texas for sure.
Is that because those are typically the Picpoul Blanc and Tannat are typically southern, kind of mid to southern French, so a little more warmer climate like we have here?
Yeah, it wasn't an accident that they were picked, right? I mean, we were looking at the health benefits of Tannat, and the climate application of these People Blanc and Vermentino, and I was the champion of Chassagne that I learned about, a few years after we opened that place. And so there was no accident. We were very much, on the cutting edge of climate change. It's another thing that people don't know about me. We managed everything organically. We've been organically minded for a very long time. I wrote protocols around SIP certification back in 2013 that we tried to get set up and applied, but we were just too darn busy to get a SIPS program up and running. But now we've got Colleen Miles that's working on that kind of stuff, and so we were early day.
And that's sustainability.
Yeah. So we were early days sustainably minded, right? So we were looking for hot weather varietals many years ago. And I think we've done a pretty good job bringing a lot of those to Texas. And I've carried that through my whole career. I don't talk about it because it's just the way I navigate my winemaking style and my growing style and and the way I apply things, right? So I don't go out and talk about how I'm but I've been doing it. I've been growing grapes like that 20 years, right? Like long before anybody else was thinking about those things, we were doing it. We were putting mulch in vineyards long before anybody else we had thought about water conservation in vineyards. We were using soil moisture monitors. We still do long before anybody else, we're doing it. And so it's been a funny curiosity to me to see all of a sudden that this thing that I used to be laughed out of rooms because of, it got to where Bob and like Ranier, so they wouldn't sit next to me because people were like, God, he's crazy. All he talks about is sustainability and how we can do it better and different. And, I'd get, laughed out of rooms. And now it's kind of like, it's what people are talking about, right? So I guess I was country when country wasn't cool. So, yeah.
And then, so you talked about your time there at Bending Branch, and then tell me about your progression from there.
So 2015, I left Bending Branch.
Okay.
And I decided to dedicate myself to all things Texas.
Okay.
I made and drew a line in the sand for myself that if we were ever going to be taken seriously as a region, we needed to be working hard and doing the due diligence around developing Texas as a wine region.
Okay.
And so, all that being said, I wasn't sure how the hell I was going to do that, but that's what I wanted to do for myself. I had committed to myself that for whatever I do moving forward is going to be all dedicated to 100% Texas and developing Texas terroir, developing Texas typicity, and developing Texas as multiple regions, because we are multiple regions. We are not one place. We get pigeonholed into one box that is like saying, everybody from Bordeaux should make the same wines as the people from Burgundy. And it's laughable, right? So, I started to go out and I entertained offers. I had some folks giving opportunities to invest and partner in building some big giant wineries, and I had already kind of done that building Bending Branch. I wasn't at a point where I wanted to jump right back into mass production or anything like that. Um, and my phone started ringing.
Okay.
And, I got a call from, kind of first 3 phone calls I got, and it tickles me. One was Dr. Smith, Tony Smith and Aaron Smith. They're the patriarch, matriarch of Ab Asterisk Winery. And Tony's like, "Hey, I saw your press release. You're leaving Bending Branch." I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go on Endeavor and some other things." And he goes, "Yeah, we want to start a winery. You ever thought about consulting?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, no, but I don't know anything about consulting, but I guess we'll figure it out as we go."
Yeah.
And that was early 2015.
Okay.
And so I had, all the way up until 22 vintage, they were folks that I worked pretty regularly with. Lovely family. Got to, meet Mike and Kristen. And then behind that, John and Dabs Holloman called me and I helped start 1851.
Okay.
And from there, the mindset and model of the incubator was already kind of like growing and building. And it was interesting to me that we needed, I didn't have the ability to build a place at that time. Like I just didn't. It takes a lot of money to build a winery. And but I kept getting phone calls. People still wanted to open wineries and people still wanted to plant grapes and people still wanted to know what to plant. And, I think they wanted to kind of work towards breaking some of the code that we put together at Bending Branch, right? So they wanted to know like what made that magic. And I think a lot of people learned that just blindingly hard work is what makes that magic a lot of times. And so that's how that started. So I started, started a consulting firm.
Okay.
And in that consulting firm, I was very lucky. I got to do some work in Texas. I got to do some work, process work outside the state. I had some folks that I had met in my days, Bending Branch that, asked me about, working in the West Coast. And it's one person who's really funny. It's like, well, I got a fantastic winemaker that's an amazing enologist, but they can't figure out how to get trucks from the vineyard here and unload it in a timely manner. Can you help them figure that out?
That's something we know very well.
So
Here
like,
in Texas.
yes, I know logistics very well. And then to their credit, their winemaker is amazing. He's amazing. Fantastic winemaker. Mine was just not built around logistics, right? And I always joke, 50% of winemaking is logistics and project management.
Ooh.
It really is. I mean, if you can manage any project, you could probably manage a winemaking facility, right? So a lot of GMs that I've met over the years are really good project managers. Brett Purnell, who was at Becker forever, great project manager. Anyway, so moving forward, we started just build more wineries and adding more folks and adding to my band of crazy people wanting to get into the wine business and moving forward. I remember going out to Ab Asterisk and being in the field when there was absolutely nothing, right? And we're like talking about how to place the tasting room and how to play, and that beautiful spot was like a cedar break, right? There was a cedar break and a hayfield behind it was just now a vineyard and a beautiful tasting room. And now the winery. And so there was just a lot of that, right? Texas Heritage and Colossi, Nara's up there. I'm sure I'm going to forget somebody we were primarily involved with, but, there were a lot.
Yeah.
And it's been a downhill run ever since, just trying to catch my feet all the time. Yeah.
And for some of those, you still do production on site here at Kerrville?
None of those operations do we still do.
Okay.
Yeah. Ab Asterisk left in 22. We still, from time to time, we pick up an odd project here or there for people. But it's generally something that they either want to try in a new programming or they, I'm going to say they don't want to bring it in house.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they offset it. But all of those places are doing all their own production and operation.
Graduated.
They've graduated. Yeah. They've graduated. And so we've got, I don't know, I guess like 5 folks now,
Okay.
We're talking to a couple new people that are looking at doing some startups.
Yeah.
But we're really laser focusing in on just the kind of the fun winemaking quality that we get to do here. So we're looking at quality over quantity, and we always kind of have. And we've got a great team. We've got some really great folks, like Port Tree Cellars. They're in High, Janet and Mark Merchant. Um, they're great. They've been here with us now 3 years. And we're making just some lights out wine. Lisa Christopher kind of got their feet started here also, and they're doing some fun things with sparkling, obviously. And so yeah, it's been fun. It's been real fun to see like the Texas Monthly, Ultimate Case of Wine, and it's a lot of folks that I helped incubate
Interesting.
in their winners, right?
Yeah.
And those things are great to watch people that at times you annoy, at times you drive, you push, right? At times you push, times you hug and love them, and it's fun to see them go out and succeed and win. And so that's what we've been doing, man. In 2019, we had the opportunity to jump in here. Wayne and Carol Milberger, fantastic people. They're the greatest business partners you could have, right? Like they wanted to retire. They gave us an opportunity to be able to purchase the winery. And through all the ups and downs around the economy and around the pandemic, they've been beyond supportive. And we wouldn't be here doing this work for Texas without Wayne and Carol Milberger, just to be quite honest. The economy would have already, shut this place down, and we'd have been looking for other things to do. So, yeah, that's kind of 1,000-foot view in a nutshell.
Well, and it's been interesting because I know of at least 4 of those that you mentioned, Abastris and Texas Heritage, Colossi, and Alexa Christopher. We interviewed last season on the podcast.
Oh
So
yeah,
great operations, is great wines to taste there. So to see that influence that you've been able to have in so many different successful wineries
yeah,
as a tribute. So
yeah. It's been fun, man. I mean, there's a lot more that we've been there's a lot more that we've been involved
I'm
with.
sure. You said close to 50 before we were talking
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah. I mean, between consulting, building vineyard, and all around startup, it's probably about 50. Startup from the ground up, I would say it's closer to like 21.
Okay.
A lot of folks don't know. I mean, we built like 1851, which turned into Slate Mill, which turned into Invention. Yeah. So we started that place. I came down the highway and I spent 3 years developing Augusta Vin. So for Scott Felder, I literally took that from a hayfield to what you see now.
A gorgeous place.
It is a gorgeous place. It's funny. If we were in my office, you'd see the blueprints because they're in my office.
Cool.
Yeah. So there's, that's the funny thing that'll make the books one day is like the blueprints of the place that I hand draw, that I hand drew and those kind of things. But yeah, no, that place is beautiful. We built a gorgeous place, built an amazing vineyard. I mean, if you look at the varietals that are planted in that vineyard, there's no denying who planted that, who put that together. Scott and his family have a really great vision, and they're doing a really great job. Place is beautiful. Yeah, it's nice to have right down the road from you.
Well, what then led you to then Kerrville Hills and then now Rivenburgh Wines?
So Rivenburgh Wine has been around for a long time, actually. So Rivenburgh Wine was started in 2015. It was, I want to say it was probably Ron Yates that was like, man, you got to continue to make wine. I was like, nah, I'm just going to consult. He's like, no, you need to make wine. Oh, it was Ron and Mike Baytek. Baytek also.
I met
It was
him.
like, yeah, I met him. It was like, dude, you gotta continue to make wine. Well, we'll help you. So Mike helped me out quite a bit with a place to do that. I had some wines made that I took with me from Bending Branch, and Mike helped me, have a place to bottle them and set them up. And so Mike was very helpful to me at that point in time in my life. And Ron was very integral in pushing me as a friend to continue to be a winemaker or have a brand. And so Rivenburgh Wine, quite honestly, has been around since the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. Yeah, it's just been kind of a little cult brand that I haven't really, it hadn't been my driving force, right? So 2019, we had the opportunity to come and take over Kerrville Hills.
Okay.
In that, we've had just some really great opportunities. Like they haven't all been money-making opportunities, but they've been great opportunities for Texas wine, for what we do. So being able to start the incubator with having a brick and mortar along with the consulting world and start a true, shared use facility here has been paramount, right? Um, Moving forward, I started in discussions around trying to train workforce with Schreiner University. And they're all in. They're like, man, John, this is a great idea. Let's put in a little vineyard. Let's start doing some teaching. So we started a program called Vinos das Colinas. We had our first graduating class this year. And 2 folks, but you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so that's been fun. But in doing that partnership, we had an opportunity to partner with Schreiner on moving the Kerrville Hills brand into an old mansion on the campus, which happens to be real close to the little teaching vineyard that we put in. And it's been awesome. It's a 122-year-old home that was built, 120, because it was built in 1904.
Okay.
And it's beautiful. Big verandas. And so we moved the Kerrville Hills brand into that spot, location in town. We thought, it's Kerrville Hills. It should be in Kerrville, not 3 miles outside of town, right? So, but in doing that, again, friends went, man, if you're going to do that, you ought to make your tasting room up at the production house for Rivenburgh.
Yeah.
Put the Rivenburgh label out there. Make it a tasting room.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, believe it or not, a lot of people think that I would like stand up and, shout great things from the rooftops just to hear myself talk. But in reality, I really am not always that like outwardly exuberant about things, right? And so I was like, I don't know, man. We're making great things up here, and some of that's, I'm very vocal in a lot of ways, but I'm also very guarded and quiet in others.
Okay.
And so, sometimes I feel like that, and people are probably gonna listen to this, so you're gonna see like a universal eye roll when I say this. That like the guarded nature around like the tasting side, right? I don't mind. I'll get up in front of anybody and argue about what we should be doing for Texas wine and how we should grow Texas fruit and what varietals should be there and how people should, be, authentic and doing 100% Texas. I have no problem doing that, and how I've been a champion for that. I have no problem. But at the same time, I have a hard time going like, yeah, but my wine's the best and you should drink my wine. I have a hard time with it. And believe it or not, I mean, if people are gonna, or they're gonna, like I said, you're gonna have a universal eye roll when that comes out, but that is the truth. And so Rivenburgh Wine, I was kind of pushed out of my comfort zone by some folks around me to start Rivenburgh Wine as a tasting room. It's like, we've got it. The hell are we gonna do with it? You might as well sell Rivenburgh Wine in here. So we started to do the brand change this last year. We didn't have any money, right? Quite honestly, like we didn't have any money. We were losing money, but it was like, well, if we've got a tasting room, we might as well try to figure out how to, to utilize it. And so here we are. Yeah. So Rivenburgh's front and center in the old Kerrville Hills tasting room.
Okay, so this was the location for Kerrville Hills before.
This was Kerrville Hills going back to 2008. Yeah, so this property, this is Kerrville Hills Winery, where it was established in 2008.
Okay.
This is the production center that Wayne Milberger built. We've made some adjustments and some little alterations, but no, this is the Kerrville Hills facility, and we have since turned it into it'll always be that till.
Oh, sure.
It will always be that.
It's true.
But we and all the Kerrville Hills wines are still made here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the tasting house is in town, but we still produce all the Kerrville Hills wines here. And so it was like, well, we might as well go ahead and do this. And so here we are. Yeah. Serving wine that I have the hardest time getting up in front of people and telling them how great it is. Yes.
Well, I noticed there's also in your tasting room distilling.
Yeah, we have Hill Country Spirits. That project has been interesting. So it's the old Hill Country Distillery in Comfort, Texas.
Okay.
We had an opportunity with some friends out of Fort Worth to partner on that, Steve and Melissa Cohn, and bring that up to the what we call the it's Rivenburgh production is what we call this up here. We call it the production house because we don't really know what the hell to call it, right? It's got a bunch of different names, man. Yeah, I wish. Yeah. Yeah. It's Chateau something, but yeah, Chateau. Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't want to disparage Texas like that, um, but we brought the distillery up here. We've got the still set up. We're starting to make some product. We rebranded all of it. I'm a big proponent of branding. I think it's important. And moonshine is great, but it has a connotation to it, right? And that product, to be quite frank, like those guys, the Kovacs family and James Stout and Steve, when they first started that thing, they were making a world-class product that nobody knew about, right? And it's like the guy who invented the hula hoop, right? Nobody knew what his name was, but when he sold it to Hasbro in 1903, everybody figured out what the hula hoop was, right? And that's that kind of thing. That's how we're looking at that. So you can come up to Rivenburgh production and you can taste Rivenburgh wine. And we'll never have more than like 4 wines on the menu. It's made to be very distinct, very small offering, very select quality wines. Then you can taste Hill Country spirits. So all the fun things that we're making around cactus. So it's like a mezcal that's not smoky, if you will.
Agave.
No, we're actually fermenting the cactus pad itself, the Napala. So it's a Napala wine. I don't want to go too far into how we're doing that because there's actually a lot of people recently, like in the last few months, there's been a lot of people trying to decode what we're doing because it's really good. I mean, this stuff's really, really good. Like I said, the Kovacs, they built something really, really special. And then you can taste Nobleman wines with Austin Pitzer. I'm the winemaker record for Nobleman. So we make all those wines also here at our place. And then he's got his little tasting room out here. So you can come up here and taste 2 different wineries,
multiple
wines.
different things.
Yeah, and I mean with like Nobleman, he has a style which allows me as I consider myself an artist. So his style allows me as an artist to work in kind of a different genre. So it's still very much a Rivenburgh wine,
Right.
but it's in a style that like I enjoy doing, right? So it's like somebody who works in a steakhouse gets to all of a sudden cook Szechuan, or traditional Cantonese food. It's like, I'm still doing the same thing I do, but I'm doing this different style, And so it's fun. I get to play and spread my wings a little bit artistically with those wines. So
Nice.
yeah.
Well, tell me just a little bit about the Texas Wine Growers Association, or what is that all about?
So Texas Wine Growers, it is the Texas Wine Growers Association. It is just Texas Wine Growers. It is an association of wineries and grape growers that are all dedicated to promoting and protecting the beautiful nuance that is Texas wine. And all things Texas wine. Our goal is to be an educated advocate for all things 100% Texas. To be in the organization, you must grow and or produce 100% Texas wine. We're the only organization that quite literally has to show each other's, TABC reportings and TTB reportings, and then sign a pledge to the fact that we will continue to make 100% Texas wines while we're members of the organization. So that's near and dear to our heart. It is a group of folks that is really dedicated to developing Texas as a wine region of standout, right? We've been actively pursuing and pushing AVAs. We've been kind of the front runner in doing that, working with Justin Schreiner to develop more AVAs in the state, which has helped create a template. This is the cool part. Like we did that, and it's helped create a template so other regions can utilize that template with Justin to get more AVAs in the state, which is a goal. Not for us to do it, but we helped break through that and put the efforts in to help build that so that other regions in the state can utilize that same model to do more AVA work, which is super important for Texas, right? Creating that regional identity is also a big deal for us. Texas is a huge state, and we love Texas, and we all make wines from all over Texas. But we also identify and understand that there's multiple different regions that are doing multiply and exclusively different things in those regions that are all equally as good, right? It'd be like you wouldn't go tell a champagne grower that he's less than because he's not making wine in Bordeaux, right?
Yeah.
They're two totally different things.
Exactly.
Right? And I think at some point we need to start to look at the state and highlight, and this is me as the president of Texas Wine Growers, I think we need to start to look at and highlight the beautiful things coming from each one of those regions. And instead of trying to beat each other up over them, let's work together to highlight those regions and really bolster those things. I personally think that Southeast Texas could be an amazing sparkling region with all the Blanc de Bois. I think we make amazing sparkling with Blanc de Bois. I think the High Plains can be known, and I'm so glad that there's more people making wine up there now, that they can be known for certain varietals. I'll keep those to myself, which ones they should be doing. That's my opinion. And then the Hill Country, I think we have a whole different ability to have different stuff. And Texoma, North Central Texas, there's great, my gosh, Howard Davies growing amazing Chardonnay in this place for decades, right? And so we need to start highlighting and promoting those things. And that's what Texas Wine Growers is working to do. We want to highlight and exemplify all of the great experiences around the state and all of the great things that all these different regions are doing. And we're going to shout it from the rooftops. We're going to work diligently from a standpoint of always protecting Texas and Texas producers specifically. You will find not a bigger band of people that care about production versus non-production. I'm a firm believer in the fact that we need to be highlighting people who are producing and allowing people who just function as a winery be that, right? We've got a great program, the Texas Wine Advocate program. You can join up for $50 annually. You can be an advocate member of Texas Wine Growers. And, we're starting to work through what that Benny package looks like, right? But right now, as an advocate member, you get really cool insight. You'll be access to the newsletter that nobody else gets. You'll have access to events like this weekend's event in Marble Falls. If you're an advocate member, you get in from 11 to 12 as a VIP participant, and we're all pouring special wines just for that. So you get to go to events early, you get to get in early, you get to meet the operators, and taste some wines that nobody else is going to get to taste. So it's a pretty cool VIP membership.
Yeah.
It's an insider's guide to Texas, if you will. So,
and Texas Undervine is a member.
It is. I know that. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah. And so it's a great organization that. It's doing some selfless work, to be honest. There's a group of us on the board that, are working diligently to do these things. And, there's days where, I was in Austin yesterday, I had to get my butt up super early and drive to Austin and go on KXAN to talk about Texas Wine Growers. And, whereas in the past, you couldn't get somebody I went and I poured a William Chris Rosé, an Abashur's Red Blend, and, one of my wines. And it's so much fun for me to get and talk about these other producers that are doing cool things. And I think that's how this organization looks at it, right? We all realize that we're all pushing the same rock up the hill, and we want to bring others with us.
What's the phrase about the rising tide lifts all boats?
Rising tide lifts all boats, for sure. I mean, that's a real thing. And I mean, we've got some challenges in our state that we've got to navigate.
Yeah.
And we'll do it. We'll get through them. Every toddler's got to learn how to walk, right? Every kid's got to learn how to run. So we'll be there.
Well, thank you for all that you're doing for Texas Wine and LA.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It's been a long journey in all of these organizations. Fun fact. Can I give you a fun fact, bro?
I love fun facts.
So fun fact, I have been a board member of Twiga. I've been a 2-time president of Texas Hill Country Wineries.
Okay.
I'm now the president of Texas Wine Growers. I have been on Sid Miller's TDA Wine Advisory Council.
Agricultural Commissioner.
Yeah. I was on that for 8 years. I'm a glutton for punishment, man.
You like having as many plates as you get spending odd time.
I do, but I feel like, and to my point, you got to be present to win.
Yeah.
Right. And also, that being said, I would encourage anybody else out there that's making wine. I'm gonna talk to the other producers out there right now. So anybody out there that's making wine and who wants to be involved and who cares about what they're doing, get involved.
Yeah.
Be involved. Don't just sit back and complain about what other people are doing. Get out there and get involved.
Yeah.
You know? And I never thought I'd be the guy to say that because I used to roll my eyes at Cord Switzer years ago and he'd say, get involved. You need to do it. But now here I am, right? And so I think it's important. I think we're at a very important stage in the development of Texas wine that all producers and growers need to be out telling their story. Yeah. So thank you to you, man, for doing this.
Well, tell me a little bit about your fruit. So where do you typically source your fruit?
So I mean, our main operation for Rivenburgh Wine, the main place we source fruit is Rustic Spur, the mills, the Jim and Renee and she's now Schussler. I love the fruit out of there. I mean, I helped start that vineyard years ago, and we've worked with them since the day it started, and Tanat, Chasal, and Simeon. I wish I could take the credit for the Simeon, but it was Bill Blackman that had told us to plant Simeon. And he was right, because that stuff makes a beautiful, beautiful.
I helped harvest their Simeon, not this year, but last year.
Okay.
So.
Well, yeah. And so, yeah, they always joke, as a winemaker, I usually show up just to pick up fruit. They always give me a hard time. They're like, well, where were you during picking? And I'm like, well, not so much to them, but it's like, well, where are you at 10 o'clock at night when we're doing punch down?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, they'll be here soon. So their Pepperjack vineyard, I've been making wines out of Pepperjack. I love the fruit out of Pepperjack. We make some Trebbiano. We're making some Teraldigo. I made my first Teraldigo was the first one I made for the Nara family out of their vineyard. Was 2016. And that was, you say, I fell in love with it. I can't take credit for Teraldigo. That's all Nikki Davis. But man, she really knocked it out of the park with finding that varietal, because that's a winner for the High Plains. So Pepperjack and the mills are kind of our big operations. We make some Lehe fruit. I love the guys at Canyon County. They're making some really nice, they're growing some nice fruit in La Mesa. So we make some stuff out of there, but our primary productions are out of Pepperjack and Mills family.
Okay.
Down here. So
yeah.
But we, the whole place, we probably make wines from 41 different vineyards.
Wow.
With all the different incubator
the projects and everything.
Yeah. We work with a lot of vineyards.
All over the states.
All over the state. Yeah.
Country and High Plains.
Oh, and East Texas.
East Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. So we make some, we made some sparkling out of some Blanc. So yeah. So last year was a killer, man. We started July 4th weekend and we went all the way through Halloween.
Yeah.
Like pretty consistent winemaking through the whole year. So we kind of worked our way across the state, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. What are your favorite wines to make as a winemaker?
Oh man. That's a good question. Man, in all the years I've been doing this, nobody's ever asked me that question. At least not that I remember.
I'm proud to be the first.
Yeah, at least not that I remember. What are my favorite wines to make, man? Wow. They put on the spot. I love making my big brooding reds.
Yeah.
I think that you know what, I'm gonna get a little like, there's a fine line, and I'm learning this as I've gotten to be an older man. I'm going to be 50 this year, which I know isn't old, but it's old enough.
Yeah, we were
right?
talking about that.
And yeah, yeah. But there's a fine line between confidence and overcompensation, right? And I've done a lot of stuff, and I've had some really great mentors that are like, don't apologize for the hard work that you've put into the things that you do, right? That started years ago when, I played sports, and it was like, don't apologize for getting an all-city bid, or don't apologize for that. You put the work in.
You
right?
earned it, right?
You earned it, right? And so I've struggled with the whole thing around, like, I've earned it. I know I've earned it, but I still struggle with, the people that are like, oh man, all he wants to do is talk about how great he is. And that's not really the case, right? It's just like, I've done a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And when you train a lot of people and they win a lot of awards, and that stuff trickles back to somewhere to somebody. And so anyway, I think that my favorite thing to make is my big brooding reds. I think that I've come up with a style that has created and led to a lot of amazing wines in the state, and I'm very proud of that. A lot of these folks that are winning awards are coming from stylistically, how we make big brooding reds, and I think that when people come here, a lot of times the first thing they go is like, "That's it? That's all? That's it?" Like, yeah, it really is. That's it. Like, we don't monkey with it. We don't over manipulate. This is what you do. And if you just leave it alone, this is how it turns out. Huh. Wow. That's it. Okay. I mean, that's it. There's still a lot of work that goes into it. But I would say my favorite wines to make are, big, big brooding reds, and not one varietal or another. Because, like, I've really enjoyed the last few years getting to make some just amazing Traldigos, and learning the nuances around that varietal has been really fun. Tannat will always be my baby. I always, love making Tannat 'cause it's become kind of, secondhand in a lot of ways, I love that I can, it's probably the only varietal truly that I can pick out anywhere,
Yeah.
So I love that, but I love making big brooding reds, and to be honest, and people aren't gonna love hearing this, they're easier than everything else to make.
Yeah.
They really are. Yeah. I mean, you start with good quality fruit.
Yep.
There are some techniques around fermentation for extraction that you do. There's some yeast selections that are pretty, that I like to kind of stick to and I don't vary much from.
Okay.
A little bit here or there. And then you just ferment it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just leave it alone. You press it and you leave it alone, right? Like you rack it a couple times, you get it in a barrel and you leave it alone, right? And so, as far as wines being made, they're generally the easiest wines to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you typically like to do those in new oak or a neutral oak or a combination?
I'm a neutral oak guy.
Okay.
I will use staves. I'm a big proponent of staves. I stumbled across staves in Monterey, California, in a conversation with a gentleman who is very high up in the Kendall Jackson organization, Fritz Meir. Super cool. He was actually one of the first winemakers at Bell Mountain. His first winemaking job was like in 1978 at Bell Mountain. And he's now, I think, like the director of enology for all Jackson family wines.
Whoa,
yeah, no,
that's pretty big.
Yeah, no, we don't keep in contact anymore,
Sure.
but I met him and we were talking and I was complaining about how much money we were going to have to spend on new oak. And he goes, have you ever heard of staves? And I was like, no, this was 2010, 2011, I was like, no, what's a stave? Like a stave like that makes a barrel. He's like, no, you put them inside a neutral barrel.
Yeah.
I was like, huh, wow. So I came back to Texas and I started doing some research and man, sure enough, we could save ourselves like 80 grand just by going to staves. And so being an operational and a process guy, right, and a business guy, I was like, we can still get pretty much the same effect without spending the same amount of money. And so we've navigated staves for a very long time. Now I use some new oak here and there. Most of the new oak that I've used is more on my white wine programs. But as far as reds go, I love to highlight fruit and I love to highlight the expressions of, mid palate and just the nuance of our terroir. I think way too many winemakers use oak as a crutch. And not because they need a crutch or to hide things. It's just because they still follow that old antiquated, like they're not dialing in their own style. It's just, well, I was told I got to put 40%
color by numbers.
Yeah, color by numbers. Thank you. That's a great way to put it. And so I don't. I like neutral oak. I like mostly neutral oak. I would say 90% of my wines are less than 10% oak influenced, either through staves or new oak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just let time work. Okay.
So what are some of those favorite wines in with your customers? What are the ones that just seem like they're always flying off the shelves and people are clamoring for all the time?
I mean, we made a Sagrantino. We couldn't get that. We blew through that. Like we couldn't even, like, it was unbelievable. The Traldigo, it is hands down been one of our fastest sellers, which kills me because, it's like, don't let the Tanat see the Tiraldi go getting off the shell. It's like, I call it like the Tolstoy effect.
Don't let the
right?
wines fight
Don't let
with
them,
each other.
yeah. But we rotate things so much. We don't really have one or another. Yeah, one of the biggest compliments I've gotten my whole career is, man, we really like all of your wines. And I don't know if I just like present them well or if I stumbled onto some magic secret, but that is one of two compliments. Like people come in and they're like, man, these are great. We love all your wines. And the other is like, we don't usually drink white wines, but we love your white wines. There's a lot of structure and body to that. Like, yeah, well, thanks. It's just winemaking. We try not to strip all the stuff that tastes good out, and making it look pretty, So yeah. Yeah. But I don't really think there's one more than another that flies off the shelf.
Okay.
There's really not. I mean, well, some sweet wine. I made my first sweet wines last year. And because I personally believe you should give people what they want, and people are coming in. There's like a resurgence of sweet drinkers, and that's okay.
Sure. Everybody has their palate.
Everybody has their palate, and so for many years I was like, I'm gonna beat my chest, and I'm gonna never
That's
stop.
not Texas.
No, I'm saying that is
Even
not.
though it was Texas. It's
That's just not wine. And that moron left that guy left this place a long, long time ago, and now it's like, no, people want sweet wines, and so in doing that, we went out and I called Maureen Qualia, and I was like, Maureen, I've never really made sweet wines. Tell me about how to make sweet wines, right? And she very nicely gave us some insights, gave us some background. And I've been making wine a long time, right? You can read it in a book, but until you talk to somebody who's actually done it, it's hard. Meredith Reed, who's our head of winemaking production and GM, she's made a lot of sweet wines, and so that's really, she's kind of taken the lead on those things. And our goal is to make not just sweet wines, but a quality sweet wine, because sweet wines have been made on this planet for a very long time. You think about Sauternes, right? You think of all these things you think about all these wines that are just super decadent. And so we said, if we're going to make a sweet wine, we're going to get fruit specifically for sweet wine, and we're going to make them sweet on purpose. Right? We're not going to go just take something and dump a bunch of sugar in it because it's going to fulfill a palate. We were going to make something that was special. And so Meredith's really kind of knocked it out of the park with some of these things we've done. We've done a sweet rosé, and we're going to do some traditional sweet French muscat stuff.
Okay.
It's really kind of fun.
Stopping fermentation early to leave residual sugar.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Processes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Disney and Pixar, you can't have this idea, but I'm envisioning this Toy Story style movie, but it's the wine and all the wine bottles have their different varietals, have their different personalities.
Thanks for listening to
It's
Texas
funny
Under
that you
Vine.
say that, because
We
I
strive
always
to
call it
provide
the
you
Toy
with the
Story
best
effect.
information
I
about
always
wine businesses
jokingly,
all
that's
over
funny that you
Texas.
say that. That's exactly
Be sure to
what's
check out our
always in my head
website
when I
at
tell that story.
texasundervine.com and follow us on our socials at Texas Under Vine to stay up on all the
So now I'm
upcoming
probably a
episodes.
huge asshole.
Oh, yeah.
Please email us with any
Sorry.
suggestions or feedback.
That or the
Also,
California
contact
Cat,
us if
you know.
you're interested
well,
in donating,
they're just
sponsoring,
big
or
egos.
advertising on the
they're just big
podcast,
egos.
just to help us
So now it's
cover our
probably pushing them off
expenses
the
and bring
shelves on
even
a
more
regular
great
basis.
info to you in future episodes.
That would be fun.
Above all,
Yeah.
travel
Well,
safely,
do you
and most
host- you've got the
especially,
tasting room here.
drink
Do you
responsibly.
host any types of events here, things like that, or
So-
just the tasting?
So, the production house is by nature, how can I say this? We by nature, we're kind of off the beaten path, right? And we decided to kind of lean into that. And it's we're kind of the speakeasy of wines, right? But I'm not going to go on Instagram and be like, look at her. I'm not going to hire an influencer to open my door and show you how this is a speakeasy, right? We're going to navigate it that way.
Spin with their glass and do the
Yeah. I mean, there's a place for that, but it's not here. And so, yeah, we're we want people to come here because we want them to search out the best wines that they can find, right? You'll see some blurps from times. I call this the epicenter of Texas wines. One could argue that it's true. I mean, stylistically, I've been involved with making a lot of style choices for Texas wines. And so, yeah, I mean, we don't do a lot of events up here. We're just kind of getting our feet under us. We don't have a wine club for Rivenburgh Wine.
Okay.
We kind of consider everybody a club member that comes in here. We try to treat everybody the same way. It's a pretty relaxed atmosphere. You may wind up on the crush pad having your glass of wine because we just don't have enough people to stand in the tasting room at the time, and we're working on something. So we kind of like to look at ourselves as like the speakeasy of wineries, right?
Okay.
I want people to search us out because we gain and build a reputation around great wines, not because we have a great lawn or the best yard games or
Right.
those things. I want to be known, and I want my team to be known for being the best winemaking team in the state. That's our goal. And I would put our wines up consistently against anybody anywhere in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that tasting experience then. So a listener's getting excited. They want to get out here to Kerrville and come check things out here. So I want to talk about, what does a typical tasting look like for the customer? So when they come in to do a tasting, I know you said you have only a certain number of wines. You change those up frequently, or what does that look like?
We do. We're pretty seasonally driven by our wines. Right now, we've even talked about this spring going into just a straight white and rosé menu, just to do things fun, right? And seasonality, we've talked about just going straight to all reds through the winter. You come in, it's still pretty traditional in the aspect of a tasting room, right? But it's very laid back. You walk in, it's like you're walking into the production house. Our tasting room you were just there. I mean, it's nice, right? It's like, one of my friends, I have a friend of mine who's a car guy. He's like, this is like the old hot rod that doesn't look super great on the outside, but the car's fast as hell.
Yeah.
And so our tasting room's kind of like that. You walk inside and it's very inviting. It's very comfortable. It's more like chairs and seating, and we have the bar. If you want to come in and sit at the bar and get nerdy with the people that are working in here, come on. You're going to endeavor into great conversation. Yeah, it's relaxed. It's not stooty. As much as we take seriously our winemaking, we never take an elitist approach to cramming it down people's throat. Like, when you come into my tasting room, we only have one other person that works here part-time, right? So, but when I did have a lot of tasting room staff, I always tell people, like, I want you to treat the people that come through the door like they're sitting at your kitchen table enjoying a glass of wine with you. And if you do that, you've done it well, in my book, right? And spurring conversation around people learning about wines or people that already know about a bunch about wines is part of the fun. So you'll come here, you'll get to taste some great wines. More likely than not, if you're nice and you're interested and you start to geek out, one of us might take you in the back and taste something cool. You're getting a completely different experience than you get, up on 290 or up in DFW, or it's, we still kind of keep that traditional interaction of wine exuberance and wine nerd, if you will, here at the tasting house. Yeah.
And then for the tasting, it's the flight that you have chosen there. How much does that typically cost for a customer to do a
four
tasting?
wines, $20.
Okay.
And it's pretty basic.
Yeah.
There's not much to it. Right now, I think we have, do we have, actually I think it's 5. It's 2 whites, a rosé. No. A white, a rosé, and 2 reds. So it's just a 4. Yeah. And like I said, we move it around.
can change
So we change it.
seasonally, so-
Yeah, it gets changed really
So if you've
easily.
been here before, you got to come back to try again,
Yes.
see the new menu.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this, after this harvest, we're going to be doing a bunch of bottling. So we'll have a completely different lineup in the fall, later in the fall, and going into spring of next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do customers need to make a reservation to come in, or is it walk in?
No, walk on in. If you see the gate open, come on in. I mean, we're open Friday. We're technically open for tastings on Friday and Saturday from 11 to 4.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question.
Yeah. Well, because we are, we're primarily a production house.
Yes.
But if you wander in, on a Thursday afternoon, and the gate's open, which it likely will be, nobody's going to stop you from doing a tasting. You just may have to do it in the back in the winery with us. Like that, truly.
While you're doing a punch down,
Seriously, be like, hold this glass. I got to do these punch downs while we can talk and do punch downs, which, in a lot of my wine travels, that's been some of my most fascinating experiences is hanging out with other winemakers that, like, oh man, come on back. I really gotta catch up on this.
Yeah.
Come and shoot the shit with me while I'm, running numbers or I'm, whatever.
Pouring out of a bottle with a couple of numbers on it. And that's it.
Yeah. And I mean, that happens a lot here, to be honest. It really does. And so, yeah, it's just gonna be a fun experience. So Friday, Saturday, 11 to 4. That is also the hours of the distillery, as well as Austin, as Nobleman. Same hours.
Okay.
If the world picks up and we see a need to open up more, we will.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about family friendly? If people have kids or pets or things like that?
I have 4 kids. Yeah, family friendly, pet friendly.
Okay.
We just ask people to be responsible for both of them.
Mm.
You don't have to keep your kid on leashes, but I'm joking. No, we are 100% family friendly, 100% kid friendly, or pet friendly.
Yeah.
Just, with pets, we do encourage people to just be responsible.
Mm.
Don't, like anything else. Like, we also don't want your kids jumping off of our catwalks. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But, no, 100%. Please. We're also, I'm a firm believer in, bring a picnic.
Okay, I was gonna ask food options. I know you're kind of small, so I don't know that you provide food, but can people bring their own food?
We don't. I mean, we don't. Like, if we know folks are coming, we've got some great purveyors here in town that we like to. We can DoorDash some stuff in if you want nowadays. In the modern world, right? So if we know you're coming, right, you let us know. We could DoorDash some stuff in for you if you want. We don't mind doing that. And though, if you want to come up and have a picnic, we've got a big lawn that is the highest point in Kerr County. You can look over the view outside, and you're welcome to do that. We've got families that have come up here. Man, when the weather starts to break, it's great. They put a big blanket outside. The parents grab some wines, and the kids run around outside. Yeah, we're all about that. Like, for us, the wine business is an agricultural family business, and it's got to be navigated to where it is everywhere else in the world. Everywhere else you go in the world, that's how it's families, right? I mean, this is a family business. It's about family. So, no, I'm not gonna tell people they can't come because they own a dog or they have kids, right?
Well, being smaller in size, do you have any maximum group sizes or things like that you kind of want to make sure you can?
Anything. That's a great question, by the way. Thank you. Anything over 8, we really would love to have a reservation.
Okay. At least some
upfront notice. Yeah, even if it's a day. Like, hey, we're in town. We're gonna come by on Saturday. Oh, thanks. Thursday afternoon. That's a great heads up. We're cool. And a lot of times with that, we're going to hook up something cool, and you may get to sit in the back in the tank room, and just because it's just more fun.
Yeah.
Right. Because we can.
Okay.
No, we do lots of private parties. We have a lot of folks who've it's funny. We've done a lot of corporate stuff, because we are up here and we can shut the gate, and we've got people who are like, hey, we want to print out your place for a few hours. We've done some strategic planning stuff for the city of Kerrville where they come and bring their entire, management and operating staff, and we shut the gate, and we go back and do our work, and they hang out. The property's yours. They hang out and do their thing. And so we have the ability to do that also. And now, now with the spirit side, we really can, as far as catering parties and things like that, we can meet a couple of different aspects of your entertainment. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So people can come and they can drink wine, but if you got people that maybe don't like wine, but they like spirits,
yeah,
you got multiple options to take advantage of.
Absolutely. And we've got DJ's he's a great bartender. He just started with us. He is a character and a half. I met him on a wine tour that I did as a I wouldn't say charity, but it was a day with John Rivenburgh where we curated a wine tour to different wineries. And I do a radio show on Friday afternoons, and from 4 to 6, it's the Buck 99.1. It's the Highway Drive. It's a kind of a traditional country music, and but on Fridays from 4 to 6 we talk about wine. It's really fun. Toby Appleton, my buddy.
Is that local here to Kerrville area?
Well, it's I think I want to say they broadcast over 4 counties. So it's Kerrville, Fredericksburg, Comfort. Doesn't quite go to Johnson City, but Stonewall, they can get it out there. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. So anyway, DJ was on he and his wife were one of the winning couples. And man, the guy's just awesome. I kind of fell in love with him, his character. And so he called me and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a part-time job. Can I be a bartender?" I said, "Yeah, shoot. Let's do it, man." So we've got a way now like to make some cocktails. So it's kind of fun. I keep jokingly telling him, "You got to grow a handlebar mustache if you're going to be a mixologist." And he's like, "No, I don't think so, man.
The full hipster.
You got to go full hipster." Yeah. Yeah, so we have the ability to do a lot of cool things.
Well, what are some of your busier and slower seasons? What's the best time for people to come out and visit?
I mean, normally October in Texas is beautiful, right? Right now it's been hotter than Hades, which has been strange. We had that weird early fall.
Yeah.
So I would say October, November, December. Those are our busiest times. I think that's some of the best time in the Hill Country. The Hill Country mentality goes very laissez-faire when you get past Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that move here from other places don't realize and it's been fun for me because in some of my developmental work, people are like, "Well, I just don't understand why we can't get anything done." And I'm like, "Well, these guys don't do shit, man. Deer season started, football season started. Everybody's rolling into the holidays. It's relaxation time. Like, it's after Halloween, things get real slow. Those 8-hour day or those 10-hour, 12-hour days go to 8 to 5, to 6. And thank goodness heaven forbid you get to Thanksgiving because then nobody's doing anything.
Yeah.
And so it's a great time to be in the Hill Country. People are out. There's a lot of activities. There's lots of festivals. So yeah, it's my favorite time to be.
I wonder how much of that is due to this being, more rural and an agricultural area. I mean, those are the months post-harvest for a lot of agricultural stuff. And so, yeah, that's the time when now, okay, we worked hard all summer. We got our harvest done. Now it's time to kick back, take our hat off. And
yeah, I think it's just, I think it's ingrained in agriculturally, I guess we're still pretty strong ranching wise around here. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, an agricultural schedule makes sense for sure.
I know agriculture is year round nowadays too, but I don't know. It's just a postulation. I wonder if that's culturally kind of what the thought.
I think it was probably so ingrained in this area over the last 150 years that now it's just, it's not, that's kind of why we like living here too, right? It's the cycle of life here. Things slow down around the holidays. Like, I don't know if it's holiday driven. I don't know if it's, all the other things we talked about, hunting season, football season. Yeah, I mean, it's probably started from some agrarian, background, but certainly for us it is. We bust our ass all year long in these vineyards, and then we kill ourselves for months making it.
The winemaking.
Yeah, and then for us, I know for sure the wine business, everybody's like, I need a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and then the true vineyard owners have to then get back into the vineyard to start doing winter pruning and getting ready for.
Dude, I'm right. I was that's where I was at. That's why I was late. I was actually looking at a vineyard going, okay, we got to start building our schedule for like November, December,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Because it's year round now, but.
Yeah.
Well, so I know you at Rivenburgh here, you're more small and, focused on that quality wine, more of a cult style. Do you do any kind of distribution, or are there ways that people could taste your wine if they don't necessarily come here?
We're in a few different restaurants.
Okay.
Not a huge amount of restaurants. It goes back to my same mentality around, it's probably not the fastest way to grow a brand. I have grown brands really fast. I've been involved with brands that jumped into distribution really quick.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to have been involved in those things, and maybe that's why I'm a little reluctant to do it now with Rivenburgh or with Kerbal Hills.
Right.
I consider myself, I'll tell you, sir. So I call it the good prom date theory.
Okay.
Right. And this is like what I tell my 14-year-old daughter too now. We're now starting to have these conversations. Like, you got to employ the good prom date theory, right? Like, I'm not running around chasing a date.
Yeah.
Right. I make a quality product. We make it at a very reasonable price. I think our pricing in our wine is way more reasonably priced for what you're getting than a lot of wines out there that I personally feel are subpar to ours. But we're a good prom date. We're not running around looking for a date. We're not running around looking for people to pick us up. If they reach out to us and say, "Man, John, I had your wine somewhere. I would love to have it in my restaurant," we will move heaven and earth to make sure that they get it.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we approach it, right? So, selective, right? And it's mostly selective around people making the effort to come to us. I don't feel like I'm not going to go around begging and pleading for people to put my stuff in a play. Like I think more highly of myself than that. And that may be the wrong way to look at it.
Sure.
But that's how I look at it.
I hear you.
So, Russ Birtwell, Cabernet Grill, they've carried my wines for a very long time. They're one of the few places in that part of the world that have it, right? 1011 Bistro here in town, Francisco's here in town, both two real nice high-end eateries. The owners love our wines.
Yeah.
They called me up and said, man, we love your wines. Can we get them in the restaurants? Yep. I will move heaven and earth to make sure you have them. So that's how we navigate. So as far as that, outside of this immediate area, there's not really any spots. We're working on a few places in San Antonio. We've in and out moved some wines through the Houston Wine Merchant, but it's just not, if I can't provide a good quality service to them, I also don't want to do.
Sure.
Right. Like if I can't do a good partnership and get them the wines they need, then I'm not going to burden them with trying to figure that out. Yeah.
Can they order on your website?
You can 100% order on our website. So sorry. Yeah, I should have mentioned that, but we ship all over Texas. And then, we use a ship compliance, so we can ship, out of state as well. So you can most definitely get all the Kerbal Hills wines, all the Rivenburgh wines, shipped right to your doorstep. And if you're somewhere else, I've been known to drive wines to people's place, just to be quite honest,
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a guy call me and he's like, man, I've been trying to order 3 cases of your wine. I've had the hardest time for some reason. And it ended up being a glitch in our computer software and his address. And I said, well, I'm driving past there in 2 weeks. I'll be happy to bring it to you.
Yeah.
He's like, are you serious? Yeah. Why not? I mean,
It's funny.
it's 3 cases of wine. Yeah. So I swung by, ate a burger with the guy, dropped some wines off, and made a friend, and he didn't know me from Adam. He just heard about how great my wines were. So yeah, so he ordered some. So anyway, yeah, you can order them. We'll ship them out.
Well, do you have any plans for future growth for Rivenburgh wines? What do you foresee in the future?
We are we have some pretty interesting growth plans. We're trying to fight through some things that were kind of backlogged from the last couple of harvests. But growth wise, I don't see us growing Rivenburgh wine as a brand, right? Much more than the 2,500 cases or so that we make every year for it. It's not modeled that way, right? So I don't see any growth plans in that regard, but I mean, I have so many things going on that we have massive growth plans for that, are different things.
Yeah.
But no, for Rivenburgh wine, I think it'll always be in that, 2,500 case. The one thing that we may end up doing is, next year we wanted to look at really structuring a specific wine club for that.
Okay. Like an allocation list?
Like an allocation list. Yeah. And the goal would be to produce it, have an allocation list. That's the club. And that's all we do. And then if you come up here, you have to be on that allocation list or in that club. And that allows us to kind of control things around our primary business, which is the incubator. It allows us to more focus on that regard.
Yeah.
So we're not chasing things.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That would be, that's probably the next thing that we're going to try and do. And I hope, and maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I would imagine we could do an allocation list of 2,500 cases.
Yeah.
I would hope. I mean, my God, I've been doing this so long. I would hope I could get, I would hope I could get that done. But that would be our goal for that. Yeah.
See where it goes from there.
And see where it goes from there. I mean, it would, if I do that, I can tell you that's where it would go. Like, and then the allocation list would get cooler and cooler and cooler. 10 years down the road, people are like, man, how did you get on that? Well,
Yep.
John's crazy.
It's the waiting list.
It's the waiting list again. Yeah. Yep. Somebody's got to, inherit that membership, if you will. Yeah.
So there are a lot of places that people can go get great wine in Texas. What really is the thing, in your opinion, that sets Rivenburgh wines apart? That makes it special, that a listener would say, man, I gotta move that to the top of my list. I really need to make an effort to get out there and check it out and taste those wines.
I would say one of the thing that makes us most special is, and my hesitancy is I hate sounding like an egomaniac, but I'm going to. We're the epicenter of wine. We have been stylistically crafting and shaping Texas wine and what it is for a long time. You're going to come here and you're going to have a quality wine and a quality experience every time you come. It may not be what you want. We may not be the place for everybody, but everybody's welcome.
Yeah.
You know, you may come in here thinking it's not the place that you want to be and wind up like never wanting to leave. We have that happen a lot. So the reason to come to Rivenburgh Wine is you'll experience things that you will, and I can guarantee you will not experience in any other place. You won't. We're the only incubator in the state. The only place where you may stumble in and see 5 or 6 other winemakers that you read about on a regular basis hanging out.
Yeah.
We're the only place where you're going to taste some varietals. And again, I think we just make really, really quality wines. And that's where our focus is. And so, yeah, come here. You're gonna get to as my good friend Chris Brender coined me a few years ago. He goes, John, you're the most famous winemaker nobody's ever heard of. I love that, right? Some days it drives me absolutely fucking crazy. Some days I love it, right? But you're gonna get to come here and you're gonna get to meet, or as Neil Newsom puts it, you're gonna get to meet the Oz of Texas wine. I love those things, right? Like they may be backhanded compliments, but they're based in some kind of reality, right? And so I love those things, man. And I love those guys. So both of those people are dear friends. So yeah, you're going to get, if you take the effort to come down and visit Kerrville, and visit Rivenburgh Wine, you're going to have an experience that you'll have nowhere else in the state. I can promise you that.
The epicenter of wine in Texas. Well, for sure, you're going to taste great wines when you go to Rivenburgh Wine. But John has had his hand in so many different projects. It's been so influential for so many of the great wineries that we have in Texas, especially in the Hill Country region. So he definitely is a wizard of what he does and has a lot of influence and help, especially managing that Texas Growers Association there. And so it's definitely a true artist that he is. So when you go to taste your wine there, you know you're getting something special and unique. Now, make sure to check out their website before you go. It's www.rivenburghwine.com. That's RIVENBURGHWINE.com. There you're going to see things like information about John and his bio. You'll see information about some of the projects that he's working on, information on his consulting and incubator services that he provides, as well as information about the tasting room there at Rivenburgh Wine, what to expect when you go, and a link to purchase those great wines there on the website. And don't forget, when you go to see them, make sure you tell them you heard about them on this podcast, Texas Under Vine. Now, after the interview concluded and I shut off all the cameras, John looked at me with a little gleam in his eye and he said, "Hey, you want to go taste something cool?" Well, of course I do. You can't answer that question with a no. So he led me out to the tasting room real quickly, got me settled in at the bar to start going through the normal tasting of the wines, but John disappeared back into the production facility. Now, as I started my way through tasting some of these awesome wines that he has on his tasting menu, ever so often, John would pop out of the production facility and he was carrying test tubes and beakers and things with all kinds of different fun wines that he's working on that haven't been released yet. He even brought me one that was still in the fermentation process. It hadn't even completed fermentation yet. He's like, "Here, try this." It was really cool to get a window in to seeing the process that goes into all the winemaking stuff beyond just the final things that you get in the bottle. He's definitely a mad scientist running back and forth, going to these great wines and bringing them out to the customers to try. It was really a treat as a wine enthusiast to get that behind the scenes view into that winemaking process and taste those different things. But of course, it came down to the end of the tasting and I needed to pick one bottle for my episode library. And when all was said and done, I had to choose the red wine blend that he has here. It's just a red blend. It's beautiful red and dark fruits, just a luscious, silky flavor. It had some really cool spice notes coming in over the top throughout the tasting. Really enjoyed this one. And John even signed the bottle for me for the episode. Thank you, John. So I brought one of these home. Matter of fact, don't tell anybody, but I purchased several bottles of it because I wanted to take some to drink as well. Very great wine. Make sure you check out that red wine when you go to visit them yourself. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of season 2. But even though, like I said, this season is ending, we're not done. There are many other great wine destinations still to visit and to bring to you, the listener and the taster. So I'll be back in season 3 after the holiday break. So look for that coming up in January for the next episode to be released. I've already got several recorded and really excited to bring you some great stuff starting in season 3 as well. And if you're enjoying this content, would you do me a favor and leave me a rating and review for the podcast? I'm 2 seasons in. This is episode 52, and I only have a handful of people who have reviewed and rated the podcast. And you don't really realize that it is free, but it does help me a ton. It helps get the podcast up in the ratings so other people who might be interested in Texas wine can actually find it, learn more about these great places, come to visit, taste great wines, and elevate the Texas wine industry. So it's a simple thing to do for you, but it makes a world of difference for me and my efforts and what I do here. So thank you so much if you would go out and leave me that great rating and review wherever you get the podcast. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow the podcast there. And if you would, leave me a comment down below on YouTube. So if you've been to Rivenburgh Wine, tell me what was your favorite wine that you had when you were there in the comments. Or if you haven't been yet, tell me after listening to the interview, what's the thing you're most excited about when you do go visit them? Just leave that in the comments down below there on YouTube. And with that, my time is up. So don't forget, subscribe to the podcast and follow my socials to be notified anytime a brand new episode is released. And until then, happy trails and bottoms up, y'all. Thanks for 2 great seasons.
Thanks for listening to Texas Under Vine. We strive to provide you with the best information about wine businesses all over Texas. Be sure to check out our website at texasundervine.com and follow us on our socials at Texas Under Vine to stay up on all the upcoming episodes. Please email us with any suggestions or feedback. Also, contact us if you're interested in donating, sponsoring, or advertising on the podcast, just to help us cover our expenses and bring even more great info to you in future episodes. Above all, travel safely, and most especially, drink responsibly. Howdy, Vine Trippers. Did you know that I now have a merchandise store for Texas Under Vine? I only have a handful of limited items, but you can go check those out and wear your Texas Under Vine swag if you'd like to tell all your friends about the great wine locations we have here in Texas and maybe get them interested in the podcast as well. So there are things like t-shirts, there's a hoodie, there's a beanie, a ball cap, things like that. But one of the most exciting things I have right now is my limited time offer t-shirt. That's my season 1 t-shirt. So this is your Tasting Through Texas Under Vine season 1 t-shirt. It's only going to be available for a little short amount of time. On the back, it has all the different locations like a band tour t-shirt. So this is a limited time item and you can go out and get it now. And one of the great things about that t-shirt is a portion of every sale goes to support the Texas Hill Country Winery Scholarship Fund. So you know that by buying that t-shirt, you're also investing in the growing and flourishing of an amazing wine industry here in Texas and all of those people that are going to come and make it even better. Check out that merchandise store. It's on my website at texasundervine.com. Just go up to the top. You'll see the link for the merchandise store.